It's that magical time of the year, folks. The holiday season, where every year, millions of people go into massive credit card debt in the hopes of buying the affections of their friends and family. And what better way to celebrate the magic of the season than by talking about some movies that I am certain are the reason why suicide skyrockets during the holidays.
I don't want to die! I don't want to die!
And that's what we're going to talk about today in this special holiday video. Hello, everybody. I'm Adam from Review Bomb.
And this is DS Lyons from the Movie Blues. And we're here on the holidays. I am Jewish. I celebrate Hanukkah.
And I am not Jewish, so I celebrate that other one. What's it called?
Toyota-thon is on.
And today we're getting together to talk about Hallmark Christmas movies that we watched. We both picked our own to watch, and then we both picked a different one for the other person to watch. And I am feeling great regret about all the decisions that have led us to this moment. What about you, Adam?
This is possibly the hardest thing that I have ever done. I honestly think it would be easier for me to engineer a rocket to the moon than it would be to set through another Hallmark movie.
I am in a constant state of not only forgetting my own movie that I picked, but forgetting the plot of the movie you picked for me. And even though I have watched your sections, I still have forgotten what both of those are about. And so it is with that enthusiasm and great holiday spirit that I hope that you guys enjoy our breakdowns of these four movies.
And with that, let's jump right in with our first movie, Broadcasting Christmas, a romantic comedy that proves no acting career is too dead for the Hallmark Channel. So, my personal choice was Broadcasting Christmas, a movie that proves that Hallmark Channel is a place where acting careers go to die, and is the story of Charlie and Emily, two reporters that live similar yet totally different lives. Emily is a small-town field reporter who works at a small local news station in Stamford, Connecticut, and spends her time doing what people in small towns do, like having dinner with family, Christmas tree shopping, and going to church Christmas services. And no offense to anyone watching, but I think we can all agree that this is the one thing megachurches do right.
Just as Jesus intended it.
Charlie, on the other hand, is the early morning news anchor for a network affiliate in New York City, a city famous for its pizza, Broadway shows, and streets covered in human poop. After a long day of struggling to read note cards on air, Charlie meets up with his friend and network producer, Patrice, who loves calling people by their first and last names for some reason.
Emily Morgan. Charlie Fisher.
And who tells Charlie that the network has put him on a short list of candidates to become the co-host of a very popular morning show, Rise and Shine. Back in Stanford, where the snow is spongier than usual this year, Emily also learns that Rise and Shine is looking for a co-host. So she calls Patrice to see if she can apply for the job. But her hopes are shattered when Patrice tells her that the studio is only interested in people who have a big following. And, worst of all, Charlie is a candidate for the job. Why would she care about that? Well, it turns out that Emily and Charlie used to date.
No way.
Yes way, Ted!
Later that night, while doing a broadcast with a guy who looks like the old man from Up, Emily does what any rational woman would do by ranting about how she should be the co-host for Rise and Shine, something that unexpectedly garners her a lot of internet fame. And because we live in a society where embarrassing yourself in front of millions of people is rewarded, the network eventually decides to let her try out for the co-host job. But there's just one small problem. Not only will she be competing against Charlie, but two other people have also been recruited by the network to audition for the job. A baseball star named Jimmy Eubanks and popular lifestyle influencer Kate McQueen. And the four of them will have to compete by producing the typical morning show drivel that's occupied the television screens in dental office waiting rooms for decades, like cake decorating, fashion tips, and this. So, will this challenge be too much for Emily and Charlie to overcome? Well, no.
It's going to be super easy.
Because it turns out, Jimmy talks like he's mentally handicapped.
Cows and Goats.
Are you fucking retarded?
And Kate decides to quit.
Barely an inconvenience.
With the competition out of the way, Emily and Charlie decide to work out their issues with one another, which can only mean one thing. Sadly, however, this lovers' reunion is cut short when Charlie tells her that the reason they broke up 6 years ago was because Charlie's dad called in some favors that got him the job in New York that Emily wanted.
I like nepotism.
But because this is a Hallmark movie, none of that matters, and they live happily ever after. When it comes to these types of made-for-TV movies, a lot of things that garner their reputation for being bad really comes down to the fact that they're so low budget. So, things like cheap sets, overused B-roll, and excessive blue screen are things that, overall, I can forgive. Sure, they're fun to laugh about, but I can let those things go. However, what I can't forgive is how terrible the script is, which appears to have been written by people who have little to no knowledge about the mechanics of storytelling. Every story is supposed to have an antagonist and a protagonist. And if you haven't seen the movie, then it would be safe to assume that Charlie and Emily play both roles toward each other as they're fighting for the same job. But considering the fact that they almost immediately decide to team up and work together, that doesn't seem to be the case. Then maybe you would expect that the other co-host hopefuls will act as antagonists to Charlie and Emily, except that both of those people leave the movie as soon as any type of conflict is established. So, with those options exhausted, we would have to look at the internal conflict within Emily and Charlie to act as the antagonist. I mean, that is certainly the case with a lot of great romantic comedies of the past, like You've Got Mail, 10 Things I Hate About You, and When Harry Met Sally, where the personal flaws, insecurities, and clashing personalities are what they ultimately have to work against in order to come together. Except that also doesn't happen in this movie. For some reason, the script seems to be in a hurry to make sure that the two leads fall in love as quickly as possible, rather than taking the time to tell a good story. A decision that I find really strange, because we all know what the end result will be. So, the fact that they would want to rush to the ending that we already know is going to happen is a decision that I just don't understand. As far as the acting goes in the movie, it all ranges from pretty bad to passable. However, the big surprise for me was Melissa Joan Hart, who plays Emily. All things considered, I think she was actually pretty good. Now, don't get me wrong, she isn't great by any stretch. She's just giving a typical 90s sitcom type performance. However, when you put her next to Dean Cain, she comes across as the Meryl Streep of her generation, because this guy stinks. Everything from his line delivery to his facial expressions just seems off. In some scenes, it's obvious that he's struggling to remember his lines, and in others, it looks like he's trying so hard to act natural that he fails to act natural. So, what could be the cause of this? Who knows? Maybe he was distracted by the fact that this is what his career has come down to, or that he was once considered a sex symbol and is now an old bloated man. Either way, he is laughably bad, and after seeing him in this, I find it hard to believe that anyone ever thought it would be a good idea for him to be on screen. So, with all of that said, would I recommend this movie?
I did say to you the other day, Adam, that I would have an easier time doing like a plot explained video of Tenet than explaining the basic function of the way that these movies operate.
Watching these movies is like zoning out when you're on a long car ride. Eventually, you snap out of it and you think, oh my God, where am I? How did I get here? That's exactly what happens to you when the credits roll at the end of these movies. You snap out of your vegetative state. And you would think something like this, where it's two people who are former lovers who are now fighting for the same job, would provide some great opportunities for conflict and character development, but as soon as anything even remotely interesting is established, it's immediately tossed out the window.
Yeah, they don't do the C word in Hallmark movies, and that's conflict. There's none. I mean, there's really none. I mean, the movie that I chose first, that we're going to head to now, I guess had the most conflict, seemingly, of any of the movies that we watched, but it was so convoluted that it's just still a complete enigma in my brain how I have the plot and trappings of my first movie, which is Hanukkah on Rye. Big mistake picking this one. How you doing, everybody? This is once again DS Lyons from the movie Blues, and today we're going to be looking at Hanukkah on Rye.
Oh? Okay, don't get all excited.
And before we get started, it's critical that we go over 3 things. The first is that Bubby and Zeta means grandma and grandpa in Yiddish. The second is that a latke is like a hash brown you would get at McDonald's, but in the shape of a yarmulke, that little hat that Jews wear. And the third is, I'm Jewish. Sorry. And okay, all right, bonus, the fourth, I am not Seth Rogen's character from The Night Before. Like, that is not me. I'm me. Anyway, let's talk about Hanukkah on Rye, a Hallmark movie made by Jews for Jews. It's amazing that the first couple seconds of a movie can truly bum me out this quickly. Christmas music makes you feel all warm and cozy. It makes you feel like you're surrounded by family. Jewish music is not Hanukkah specific. I mean, you could just play this music and show a picture of Steven Spielberg and it would work the same way. But it's also just so sad and old-timey. I feel like a character from Fiddler on the Roof shuffling through a Jewish ghetto during wartime when I hear this shit. And so we introduce the first of 2 rival delis in this motion picture, Gilbert's. This is Molly, heir apparent to the deli, as she's being lectured by her bubbies about how this Hanukkah, they need to be more prepared than ever for their exclusive clientele.
Yeah, they break even and we make a profit, and this year we're a little further from even than we'd like.
Meanwhile, Molly's Zeta Stan is trying out his Temu Rodney Dangerfield impression.
They thought the latkes would only last for 1 night, but they lasted for 8. Get it, Ruth? Oh, Hanukkah? 8 nights?
I'm gonna have to see this guy's Jew card. I mean, typically we are a lot funnier than this.
Is this on?
Anyway, here's something I thought I would never see, Jewish B-roll stock footage to cut in between scenes. This is the kind of footage a hunter would play to lure a Jew into a trap or a cage or something.
We're going to hunt the Jew.
Next, we move from New York to LA, where we meet our rival deli owner, Jacob, as he prepares to buy a New York location after the lifelong success of his deli, Zimmer's.
It's a lot of red tape opening a new location.
Nobody knows this business better than I do.
So Jacob heads to New York to scout out a new location for Zimmer's, and immediately bumps into Molly in the mailroom of his rental property where he'll be staying during his trip. And I don't want to be overly judgmental, especially on the holidays, but my man Jacob doesn't really feel Jewish. He feels more closeted gay.
You sure you don't want me to come with you to New York?
Do you think that you need to? Is this not a safe neighborhood or something?
No. Huh?
Not really buying it, Jake.
I'm actually a really nice guy.
We'll see.
No.
Honestly, I don't think Molly is buying it either.
You're not my type.
Oh, okay, what's your type?
Men who can open a mailbox without help.
Next up, Molly and Jacob get lectured by their respective bubbies over their lack of spouses and children to carry on the deli legacy.
What good is the business if there's no one to give it to? It doesn't hurt that you're in the promised land for nice Jewish girls.
What a stupid, dated stereotype this is. Oh shit, my wife is from New York.
I don't have trouble meeting women.
Or men. So both of their bubbies hatch a scheme to use a Jewish matchmaker, which, of course, hooks up both of our deli owners anonymously as potential matches with one another.
You sneaky, sneaky Bobby.
At last, we reach our first scene of pure fiction in this movie, as a group of people gather in a public square to sing Hanukkah songs. First of all, this is Christmas-coded behavior. Jews don't go around caroling prayers. Second of all, I don't care if you're in New York or not, we don't gather to sing prayers in a park because it would probably lead to a massive hate crime. And we also hate being outside. In 2024, being proud and publicly Jewish is about as rare and dangerous as being publicly straight, white, and male. So not this guy, then.
I hate ranch dressing that comes from a bottle, and I judge harshly any restaurant who uses it instead of making their own.
Why are you gay?
So our 2 lovebirds meet up at the public menorah lighting that never happens in reality and begin to kick it off, awkward Jewish style.
Happy Hanukkah. Okay.
So Molly and Jacob begin writing each other through the matchmaking service. And as Molly narrates her letter, you really get a load of her bizarre accent in this movie.
Thanks for your honesty. And I'm not upset. I'm relieved. Poor matchmaker, though. She has no idea we're about to ruin her perfect record.
I looked it up after the fact, and it turns out that this actress is French and Israeli. So she spends the runtime of the movie suppressing those accents while trying to do some sort of New York accent. It's too damn much.
I have this tendency of staying with guys for way longer than I should.
This is how I talk in my accent. There is a different inflection on every other word, and it hurts my brain.
I'm only doing this for my bubby, too.
Like, it's fine. They cast an Israeli actress. I mean, good for them. But they establish very firmly in this movie that she is a third-generation born New Yorker. And she talks like this.
Well, feel free to leave a good review online. Most of our clientele are still printing out PDFs and sending them to their grandkids through the mail.
I need you to give me the stone. You're putting yourself and everyone else in grave danger.
Back at the deli, Molly fills her family in on the juicy details of her pen pal relationship. And I am nearly positive that the director of this movie told Mom and Bubby to just make the most Jewish-sounding noises they could possibly muster.
When are you going to write him back? Oh, I already did. Oh.
Aha.
That's the end of that. What are you gonna do?
Later that night, Molly and the deli are hosting another absolute future scene of a hate crime. A massive Hanukkah party with a Hanukkah song contest. Jacob is in attendance, not because of the pen pal thing, which is anonymous, but because he is legitimately becoming close to Molly in real life at the same time, without knowing it's the girl from his letters. And okay, I don't want to get too far out in the weeds here about ranch dressing, but this grown-ass man is handed a full meal and then asks Molly's family if they make their ranch in-house.
Try it with the ranch.
This is made in house.
Now at this point, Molly already received the anonymous matchmaker letter from Jacob, and in that letter he wrote that one of his 3 largest pet peeves in all existence is when people don't make ranch in-house.
I hate ranch dressing that comes from a bottle.
And literally sitting across from this handsome Punim as he starts autistically screeching about ranch literally 24 hours after she read his letter, and she doesn't immediately realize that this is the same guy. This is some Clark Kent wearing glasses levels of non-recognition. I mean, for Christ's sakes, how did this grown woman who manages a small business not put this together? So the Hanukkah song contest kicks off, and what in the editing fuck is this cut? Yeah, let's just show Bubby and Zeta extremely sad for 1 second. I think that would be great. So the Hanukkah song contest kicks off, and
Hanukkah! Hanukkah!
Hanukkah's here, and we can't agree if it starts with an H or it starts with a C. But the only thing that really matters to me is jelly donuts.
Are you retarded?
And then Lisa Loeb, imagine her backstage watching these openers though. Huge career drop-off from being on the VH1 Countdown. And I mean in real life and in the fictional context of this movie being in a random diner.
You say, at least maybe less heartbroken.
Later that night, Jacob's friend from California somehow recognizes him entirely blindly from behind. And this exposes Jacob for being in town to actually open a rival deli, something that he has not told Molly yet.
You scoping out the competition?
What does he mean, the competition? So this is why you've been snooping around ordering all that food? Unbelievable.
I'm actually curious about how this movie is doing its third act romantic comedy characters breaking up moment 33 minutes into the movie. I no longer know where this movie is going. Molly's already giving Jake the cold shoulder in the mailroom later that night, which leads to sadly the most accurately Jewish 15 seconds of the entire movie.
You know why I believe in God? Because every time I'm a little down, I get some kind of sign that makes me think that someone up there is watching out for me.
You had to know. You had to know what you were doing here, guys. You had to know.
So we have many Jews that cause a lot of the one who like the money.
Next, thanks to the nosiest fucking doorman in history, Jacob discovers that Molly Spiegelman is in fact the fictional Beth from her letters. So Molly writes David a letter proposing that they finally meet over lunch. And you would think that the day of the lunch, Jacob would be cool about knowing that Molly is actually Beth. But he is for sure digging the hole as deep as he possibly can.
You look beautiful. Taking a risk with the high heels, though. What if the guy's like 5 feet tall? What if he shows up looking like a bridge troll? What if he, looks just like me? Your fate awaits.
I know Jewish women, man, and you are never going to recover from this level of tomfoolery. You're gonna have the same level of trust issues as the average couple on 90 Day Fiancé after this.
She's gonna hate you for not telling her sooner, bud.
The doorman Thomas is the based warrior of this motion picture. Congrats, dude. So not only does Jake keep upping the stakes around revealing himself, but he ends up standing Molly up for lunch as well. Apparently, she appreciates being stood up.
I have to thank you because now I finally know what I want. I wish you nothing but the best.
And so Molly realizes that Jacob is actually the right man for her after he treats her like dog water and gaslights her into believing this was how it was all supposed to roll out.
And if I had another good luck penny to give you, I would. I'd give you 1,000,000 of them. Decided not to meet David after all. Why not? Guess I saw the light.
I see what you did there. Nice.
And so Molly breaks up with pen pal Jacob for regular Jacob.
She broke up with me. She wants to be with me.
Look, I didn't meet David today. It ended up being the best thing that could have happened.
Yep, this girl's gonna need a goddamn therapist. So David gaslights his girl, lies to her, leads her on, sends her to lunch across town by herself, and then stiffs her. And then on top of it all, Jacob finally buys the rival deli location down the street.
All I could think about was you.
We're opening Zimmer's East in the spring.
Walk out the door, you see someone that you know, and they ask you how you are, and you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
This guy sucks, but at least he comes clean.
I need to tell you.
Oh my God, the linchpin of this Jewish romantic comedy is a penny. We did this. I feel like I somehow am at fault here. I am sorry.
This isn't about the deli anymore. This is about trust. That's gone.
Oh my God, dude, I told you. The doorman told you.
She's gonna hate you for not telling her sooner, but
This girl's gonna have a fucking air tag on you for the rest of your miserable lives together. Jacob's entire family shows up to Gilbert's for some kind of latke making contest. I'm not sure how or where this was proposed, but I'm doing my best here. Yada yada yada. The families have their Battle of the Bubby latke making contest. And just like a hot little pro-Jew tip here, these latkes look painfully average. They just don't look fried right. They're just too thick and sad looking. Anyway, through some highly convoluted Jewish geography, Jacob and Molly realize that their latke recipes are actually identical. And I don't mean they taste similar in the way that all Jewish food tastes similar, because it's all bland and made with cheap ingredients and a desperate lack of seasoning. I mean, literally, this is the same recipe because their bubbies once shared an apartment after arriving from Ellis Island or something. Okay, this would be immediate grounds for me to do a 23andMe on this woman and make sure that we are not cousins. And instead, this is the linchpin that convinces them that they are a match made in Jewish heaven.
It doesn't matter if we're Beth and David or Molly and Jacob. We're soulmates.
We'll flip a coin. Anyone have one?
Oh.
Actually,
yeah.
So yeah, I'm really quite sorry that I picked this movie. It was exhausting. This is for a really sad Jewish wine mom. It's not for me. I am far too cynical about religion in general to get any kind of enjoyment from a piece of content like this, but I hope that in watching it, I have provided you some fun content, and I needed a reason to wear this sweater because I'm not going to any actual Hanukkah parties. That being said, I look forward to Adam's pick for me. It's going to be a Scottish Christmas movie. Can't wait.
I suppose the first thing I need to point out, because I'm sure a lot of people have already made this connection, is that Hanukkah on Rye is surprisingly similar to You've Got Mail.
Which I didn't even think about, and then when you said it to me, it really unlocked the plot structure of this movie. Very apparent now that whoever wrote this movie had just watched You Got Mail.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that there wasn't a lawsuit, because I would say the similarities between the two movies are to a litigious degree. Really, all it needed was a cameo by Dave Chappelle.
I'm Rick James, bitch.
And it would have been exactly the same.
It is not a surprise to me that there were no legal actions taken against this. Having dealt with Hallmark's copyright myself over the past week, they are extremely litigious, and I can only imagine for the Jewish movie that they produced, their lawyer team was extra boosted and ready to go. So I can't imagine anybody wanting to step into that realm.
Heisho Heischbaum for the defense.
Before we continue, it's getting kind of dark and pretty cold, so I think we should go inside first, and then we can talk about our other two movies there.
Brr, I'm so cold because I'm Jewish.
this is much better. A warm fire, cozy sweaters. What more could you ask for?
Bro, play that clip. Play that clip of Dean Cain pretending to clap like a human again that you found in that movie. Please overlay that like right now. And what in the fuck was going on here? I almost want to watch this movie just to see the Dean Cain-assance finally hit rock bottom. That would be great.
On an all-new SVU, Dean Cain. He's a predator.
I hopped on Google. I looked up, like, what is the worst Hanukkah movie made by Hallmark, but I'm not sure that really made any difference for the movie that I made you watch. I would assume it's just as bad as all the other ones, except at least the other one had Superman in it. So that was a plus.
I didn't rape anyone.
The next movie is Double Holiday, which ironically is also about two people competing for a job. Don't know how that happened, but here we go. So, the movie that was chosen for me by my illustrious co-host is Double Holiday, which unfortunately is not a buddy cop movie starring Dennis Quaid and Val Kilmer, but instead is a run-of-the-mill romantic comedy that dares to ask the important question, what if a Jewish person had to plan a Christmas party?
Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria!
So, without any further ado, let's dive right in to another round of holiday movie awfulness with Double Holiday, which starts like every other Hallmark original movie, with lots and lots of B-roll shots of New York City, in a desperate attempt to disguise the fact that this movie was shot in Canada. And this is where we meet Rebecca, a senior staff member at a prestigious property development firm who has just learned some exciting news. The company VP has just left the firm, which makes her next in line for the job. But there's just one small problem. There's one more person in line for the vice president job, Chris, who looks like Donald Trump Jr. for some reason, and is someone that Rebecca doesn't like. Why? Well, because they're two very different people. You see, he's really laid back and carefree, where she, on the other hand, is really uptight and hyper-focused on her career. And if this sounds familiar, it's because it's the same relationship dynamic between Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard in Jurassic World.
I gotta hunt.
Anyway, Jane, the president of the firm, calls an emergency meeting to discuss the Dorothy Jensen Memorial Fund, a charity that wants to build recreational centers throughout the city, and is an account that the firm really wants.
We want this account.
And the way they plan on getting that account is the same way any firm would, by throwing a really cool Christmas party.
Right.
Jane also decides that Rebecca and Chris will both be in charge of putting the party together, and if they manage to impress the head of the foundation, then she will name one of them the new vice president. Now, is the notion that a prestigious property development firm would rest its hopes on selecting a new vice president and securing a high-level client on the success of a Christmas party kind of dumb? Yes, it is. Is it the dumbest thing I've ever heard in a movie?
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Not by a long shot. So, Chris and Rebecca head over to Jane's house, where the snow is made of styrofoam apparently, where they make the unfortunate discovery that they will have to plan the whole thing from scratch. However, this planning session will have to be cut short, because Rebecca is having her family over later that night for Hanukkah. So, here's a question for you. Have you ever wanted to know more about the Hanukkah tradition? Well, you're in luck, because this is the part of the movie where Chris takes a moment to break it all down for the non-Jewish members of the audience.
Menorahs, candles, dreidel? Dreidel, is that right?
Wow. Thanks, Chris. A bit later, we see Rebecca in her kitchen as she struggles to make latkes, which, as we all now know, are a staple of Jewish cuisine, along with pitchka, cow tongue, and gefilte fish.
I'm throwing up. You're making me throw up.
Luckily, however, when Chris stops by to ask some questions about the party, he is able to save the day with his superior culinary skills. And at this part of the movie, it becomes obvious that they're starting to compile a list of all the things that make Chris the perfect man, a list that we're going to keep track of here. Thankfully, all the cooking is done just in time, as all of Rebecca's family shows up for the Hanukkah festivities, which, judging from this brief moment, must be a nightmare for any Jewish child. And, to make matters worse, they all insist that Chris stay for dinner and invite him to the second night of Hanukkah. Early the next day, we see that Chris is playing basketball with a group of young children. But he has to leave early so that he and Rebecca can pick out a Christmas tree. So by now you're probably thinking to yourself, how could Rebecca possibly pick out an aesthetically pleasing tree? She's Jewish. That's a good question. After all, she doesn't know much about Christmas.
You don't know anything about Christmas trees?
But luckily, Chris is there to help her with the finer points of tree selection, and we learned that he wants to build rec centers across the city.
I haven't been this excited about a project in a long time.
Now it's time for Hanukkah night number 2, where the festivities are in full swing, and we get to see all the fun things that Rebecca's family loves to do, like lighting a menorah and epic dreidel spinning. Sadly, however, the festivities are cut short when Rebecca is told by Jane that the theme of the party is too highbrow, and that won't impress the head of the Dorothy Jensen Foundation. So, after some quick thinking, they decide to scrap the fancy Christmas party idea and tell Jane that they plan to hold a traditional family Christmas party, because family is what makes holidays special. And honestly, I couldn't agree more.
Game's over if you cry.
So now it's time for Hanukkah night number 4, where we see that Rebecca's family has decided to volunteer at the rec center that Chris goes to, and is the perfect time to learn more about what makes Chris the perfect man.
My mom, she was around, but she had to make ends meet.
However, the next day, things in their budding relationship take a rocky turn when Rebecca finds out that Chris had a meeting with the head of the foundation that morning, seemingly trying to take the vice president job behind her back. But, as always happens with these movies, this goes nowhere, leads to nothing, and is resolved immediately.
Everything worked out for everybody!
Which now means it's time for Hanukkah night number something, honestly I lost count, where Rebecca's family gets together for more traditional cuisine, Chinese food, which I guess is also an ancient Jewish aphrodisiac, because the erotic aroma of fresh lo mein causes Rebecca to admit to her sister that she is in love with Chris. And honestly, how could she not be? I mean, look at this list. So now I'm going to be completely honest with you and just say that I am so tired of talking about this movie that I'm just going to jump right to the end, where, big surprise, they confess that they love each other and they live happily ever after.
I did not see that coming.
Now, is this abrupt ending cheating? Possibly. Do I care? Absolutely not. I knew from day one that the worst part of doing this video would be having to talk about the movies that we watched, because these movies aren't meant to be discussed. They are meant to be forgotten as soon as they end and are replaced by another Hallmark movie that comes on right after it. They seem to serve no purpose other than to be used as background noise while cleaning the house, or to be used as benign entertainment in assisted living facilities. With that said, surprisingly, this movie is not as bad as Broadcasting Christmas, so it has that going for it, I guess. But it's still bad enough where it makes you wish that this would happen, instead of having to sit through the entire movie.
Wow, that looked memorable.
I've already forgotten everything about it.
It was handsome guy, okay girl, going for a job, which is actually the plot of all of these Hallmark movies. They're all about people just trying to get a job. It makes me think that the Hallmark workforce is probably a pretty toxic place to be.
In a new lawsuit filed by Penny Perry, the network is being hit with accusations of age discrimination.
One thing that I was surprised by is how the movie goes out of its way to make Rebecca clueless about Christmas, and how eager Chris is to call it out.
You don't know anything about Christmas trees?
It also surprised me how willing Rebecca's family was to also celebrate Christmas. They're just like, yeah, we celebrate Christmas too. It just seemed strange.
It's called assimilation, Adam. It's the only way we keep ourselves safe.
Sensing the impending battle, a flock of Jews flies quickly away, as avoiding confrontation is their best chance for survival.
All right, so we have one more movie left to talk about, the movie that I chose for you to watch. So tell us what you thought.
All right, I guess I'm rounding out this wonderful Odyssey of Pain with a movie that broke my spirit in ways I was not prepared for, and a movie that erased my brain like a neuralizer. And that movie was A Merry Scottish Christmas. Let's go ahead and, man, go for a ride on this one. Welcome back, everybody. Next up, we're going to be looking at the Hallmark Christmas movie, A Scottish Christmas, a movie that combines two things that I just have no connection to and do not care about: Christmas and Scott Wolf. and the entire country of Scotland.
There are only two things I can't stand in this world. People who are intolerant of other people's cultures, and the Dutch.
You know it's going to be a quality motion picture when Lacey Chabert and Scott Wolf are listed as individual producers, as well as having their own private stylist. Sorry to the actress who plays Scott's wife, Sarah. You gotta dress yourself, peasant. Estranged siblings Lindsay and Brad travel to Scotland at Christmas in a green screen machine to reunite with their mother, Jo. 3 minutes. It took 3 minutes before my ears were sodomized by Christmas bagpipe music. Oh, the restraint.
That's one way to slay a Christmas song.
Festively based. Lindsay, Brad, and Brad's wife get a tour of the Glencrave Castle, where they will be staying. We get a look at its many fake paintings that look like they were made on MS Paint. And the castle's dubious family history, which I'm sure won't come into play at all over the next torturous hour and 25 minutes. Lindsay and Brad really put the strange in estranged, as they're pretty awkward with each other over past events that we're not quite sure of yet. But in this awkward tension, Lindsay, a clear workaholic, goes outside to get better service. Outside the castle, Lindsay meets this absolute hunkosaurus. He's a handsome lad who's clearly not going to have any kind of romantic plotline with Lacey Chabert in this movie whatsoever. I'm sure this is the last we'll see of this super tall, buff, ripped Scotsman. That's it, he's gone.
Great.
Yeah, just...
Back inside Castle Glencrave, and Lindsay is grabbing some food before bed, while Mom hops around off-limits parts of the house like a fucking horror villain. Alright, let's try this scene again, but with a horror sting.
See, Mom? That's the 4th floor. It's off limits. Why is she going up there?
Hell yeah. There it is. And look, let's just get this out of the way. I've had a crush on Lacey Chabert, if that's how you pronounce her last name, since 1998's Lost in Space. So excuse me if my ears perk up a little bit when I hear her moan at the morning bagpipes. Anyway, back to this fucking movie. Lindsay and Brad go snooping through the forbidding quarters of the castle. And that's when the secrets of the castle and of the siblings begin to unravel.
Well, I suppose it's time you learned the truth.
But are you a duchess who loves Christmas, or...?
And oh shit, it turns out that Mom is the Duchess of the castle.
What's going on here?
Not a lot.
Well, I suppose it's time you learned the truth.
Okay, fine. So yeah, Mom ran away from the castle to be a groupie and bang some dude in a folk band in America. Yeah, and I guess these two spoiled brats who have perfectly affluent lives, whose mother's given them pretty much everything, are pissed that she didn't let them know that they could be Duke and Duchess of a castle in Scotland.
Mom, you kept your identity hidden all these years.
While the whole time denying us our true selves.
Yeah, fuck you, Mom. How dare you chase your dreams and give us a full and rich life?
I feel like I am in the middle of some twisted royal tale.
You and me both, babe.
It's just so backwards.
I feel cheated.
Yeah, and I feel cheated too. I mean, if time is money, then I technically feel like I've paid for watching this movie even though I illegally downloaded it. And yeah, I don't give a fuck. Fuck you, Hallmark. You ruined my weekend with your dumb copyright AI. And did I mention that these two are absolutely not going to fall in love? This dude just rides this thing to work. Nothing to see here. These two are not gonna fuck. No way.
Scots are hot. What can I say?
They are.
Yeah, so my headcanon for this character is that he knows that she's going to inherit the castle and is like a poor piece of shit guy that's going to fleece this woman for her inheritance. Sorry, I think I'm trying to make my own fun. And so Mom finally introduces the indecent proposal at the center of this abomination.
I can't run this place. If you're interested, I'll pass it down to you. Keep Glencrave in the family.
Oh, this isn't Downton Abbey.
No, it's not, because I think that people do actually enjoy Downton Abbey.
Wow, look at those moves.
I did not have becoming racist towards the Scottish people on my 2024 bingo card, but my door is always open. Here we are. I will hold space for that.
May your lung rink. Long may your chimney smoke. He wishes you good health.
And to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.
Everybody's so happy and lovely and fucking polite and sweet in this movie. It's like a goddamn living Hallmark card. Fuck. Thankfully, from a note-taking and editing point of view, this movie then devolves into half an hour of absolute time-wasting drivel, devoid of any actual substance. We get the Christmas village celebration, an entire set piece where the siblings judge a whiskey competition. We get a scene where people are making Christmas cookies, a scene where ladies bond over making mistletoe. We get a scene where the siblings go and play with Shetland ponies, as well as a slew of vanilla infomercials for Scotland. And by infomercial, I mean like genetic propaganda. This movie portrays the Scottish as the happiest, liveliest, sweetest, most generous, caring people in all of the universe. I mean, this would be unbelievable to portray anyone in the light that this movie portrays them. I know that there are some miserable Scottish people out there. I'm pretty sure it's baked into the DNA of being like Irish and Scottish. There's like that background misery that Jews kind of suffer with. But yeah, this movie makes their entire culture seem like this cult of toxic positivity and river dancing, and it's just fucking exhausting. Anyway, these two finally kiss. Zero fucking chemistry. I literally got goose flesh watching these two kiss. It made me feel like I was watching a brother and sister kiss.
You're a bonny lass.
Isn't that what you call your horse?
Aye.
And I cannot stress this enough. This movie has overloaded my mind with how many times they mention fucking Christmas.
It's Christmas tomorrow.
You know how much I love Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everyone! Merry Christmas edition tour guide for today.
Glenn Crave's straight out of a fairy tale at Christmas time.
Thanks for coming to our Christmas show!
Hey.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Hey, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
For the 12 days of Christmas, apparently.
It can be my Christmas present.
Perfect holiday spirit, a Christmas whiskey.
They're Kiltmas shortbread cookies.
Enjoy Christmas.
Merry Christmas Eve, Danny.
It is a Merry Morgan Christmas.
And you know what? That's enough. That's enough. Fuck this. Fuck this fucking video. I don't need to tell you what's going to happen in this movie. I don't need to tell you that these two siblings are going to get over their gripes with each other from the past and become the Duke and Duchess of this random Scottish castle, which was actually filmed in Ireland. I don't need to tell you that. This movie has a direct trajectory based on pre-existent evidence. We know where this is going from the first 5 minutes of this movie. There's not a deviation or a hiccup in the road. And that's essentially one of the many problems with A Scottish Christmas. There is no force of conflict. There is no antagonist in this situation. This is merely a toxic brainwashing of Merry Christmas sentiments rolling around in an endless vacuum of space, complimenting and overindulging the Scottish people as if they are the greatest people to ever walk the earth. I don't think that's true, or they wouldn't need Americans to come in and take care of their goddamn castle. There is no antagonist of this film. It's two siblings that are just coming to the realization that they inherited a castle. There is no driving force to get in the way of these siblings. They are not rejected by any of the townspeople. In fact, every single townsperson who knows that the Glencrave Castle runs their entire economy in their town, and they say it multiple times in the movie that Glencrave is this entire community. They just willingly give it to two soap opera stars, just without blinking, don't care, don't question them. They are shipping them all the way without any force of change in this movie, without anything other than a slow acceptance of a family title. There's nothing to this movie. It is a shallow, fake-looking, cheap, repetitive, annoying movie. To a degree, I do enjoy Christmas. I enjoy a lot of Christmas movies. I enjoy the spirit of the holidays, but this is so fucking saccharine, so sweetly boring. It's absolutely life-draining to the human body to watch something like this. I am glad that Adam and I did this project. I don't want to seem ungrateful, especially around the holidays, but I will tell you this. This is not a movie made for a human being. This is a movie made for a caged animal, a mindless dolt, a creature in the in-between nether realm of consciousness and awakeness, a being tormented by the very idea that they could have a conflicting negative thought in their brain and they must be mollycoddled by well-wishings and the holidays as if they are a babe suckling for the nipple. The acting is stiff, the scenery is bland, the motivations of the characters are transparent, see-through. There is no revelations to be had, there are no conflicts and dilemmas to be resolved. This is paper-thin waif
air. This is nothing. Nothingness incarnate, covered in green and red. I hated this fucking movie. I hated watching this, and when it ended, I cried. I was driving in my car at 5:20 in the morning, and I wept, and not in a good way, and not in the way that Scott Wolf and company expected. I cried in pain, like a fawn discarded on the side of the road, guts spilt, life flashing before its eyes in one final grip towards death.
I am death. I have become death from watching something so soft.
Christmas is ridiculous. If you treat Christmas like it solves all of your problems, like it is the center of your universe, get a fucking grip. This is like Lacey Chabert's 10th fucking Hallmark movie. Fuck off. These movies suck. 0 out of 10. This one sucked. I'm DS Lyons, and I ruined my video. I tore my script up. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year. And so that's it. That's my mental breakdown. And Merry Christmas, Adam, and the Hallmark Channel for ruining my month.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I now have to confess that this might have been a hate crime on my part because I actually watched about 20 minutes of this movie just to make sure it was the caliber of film that would break a person.
Yeah, I was wondering what was your inspiration behind getting me to watch this one? Was that it? That you just wanted to find one that would break my spirit?
Well, first, my goal was to find a cast that was just awful. Then, when it got to the cartoonish and some might say offensive tour guide, I knew that this was a winner.
You really did a number on me with that one, which I deserve, definitely, for doing that to my podcast host for many years.
Shut up!
Adam, any other holiday thoughts to round out this experience?
No, I think we've said all there is to say about these movies. Plus, it is getting late, so we should probably leave before the owners get back.
Wait, this isn't your house?
Nope. Happy holidays, everybody.
Bye.